Welcome everyone to the Weekly Wrap Full Review. That's right, I'm Sean, your host. This week we're going to be talking about Darren Aronofsky's film Mother. So let's get into it. Synopsis. A couple's relationship is tested when a group of uninvited guests arrive at their home, disrupting their tranquil existence. It's pretty vague, but we will get into how that relates to the plot as well as the plot twists later on in this episode. So let's talk about cast. So when you talk about cast, you have to talk about the director. The director of this film is not only the director, but the writer, Darren Aronofsky. He's written films and directed films such as Noah and Requiem of a Dream. I've seen the former, haven't seen the latter. So, what does that mean for this? He likes to mix things up a bit. Noah was a biblical telling of the flood, but with some different perspectives. Requiem of a Dream, I haven't seen, but I've heard that it's pretty chilling and unsettling. Now, if we're going to look at some of the cast, the actors and actresses in this film, we have to talk about Jennifer Lawrence, the mother of this film, also known as Her, as they title her in the credits. Now, she's incredible and captivating. We see her in this home, trying to make this home the best it can possibly be, but also, to the same respect, is saying a lot of what we, the audience, are saying. What are you doing in my house? Leave. She's honestly the most sane person in this film. And you'll see why and how that relates to the plot next. But we've got to talk about Javier Bardem before we get to the plot. His title is him, the man of the house. That's right, he owns this house. This was his house. And he is married to Jennifer Lawrence. Not a bad gig if you ask me. But he is an author. He is a creator of poetry. And is kind of on a writer's block. And then, boom, as soon as that writer's block goes, everybody loves him. He's back in the world and pretty much forgets Jennifer Lawrence. Don't know how you could do that, but that's what he does. We also have a couple other big name actors. The main two that I'm going to talk about is Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer. They are both a married couple in this film. The credits label them as man and woman. That's right, pretty simple. We don't really have names in this movie, apparently. Now, both of them have an honesty and a realism to them, yet, honestly, some naive and crypticness going on. Ed Harris is just a guy trying to make it and is pretty much obsessed with his favorite author, Javier Bardem's character. And then we get Michelle Pfeiffer, who honestly has some sinister backgrounds. Now, there are many other people in this film. Donald Gleason, Kristen Wiig. There are many. I can only name a few and go into detail about a few. But watch this film, pick up on who they play, and let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Now, we are going into spoiler territory, people. Now, I told you in the weekly wrap that for a more in-depth review and spoilers to this film, it would be in this episode. But I'm giving you the warning again. That's right. We are going into spoilers, so click away if you haven't seen the movie, because it will ruin the movie for you. Still here? Alright, let's get into it. The plot of this movie? Yeah, I'm going into the plot. So if you haven't clicked away, click away now. Alright, the plot of this movie is the Bible. That's right. It's the Bible. The entirety of the Bible from front to back in 2 hours. How? Okay, let me get into that. I'll give you some comparisons. Javier Bardem's character is God. He is the creator, the author of life. His office is the Garden of Eden, the precious corner of the earth where the tree of knowledge is. In his office sits a jewel. This jewel is not to be touched by anyone but him. No one knows why, but only Javier Bardem can touch this jewel. Sound familiar? That's right, it's the apple of the tree of knowledge. Now, Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris are Adam and Eve. Yeah. And when they come into the house, they are told not to go into the office. Eventually, they go into the office, and what do? They pick up the jewel, they drop it, and it shatters. They partook of the tree of knowledge. He tells them to get out, leave. They do, and he boards up his office so no soul can ever go in. And what is the first thing they do after they leave the office? Yep, they get down and dirty with it to symbolize that they now know of the sin. That's what I'm assuming is portrayed there. They also have 2 sons, the youngest of who is getting most of the inheritance. The older is not too thrilled about this, and he kills his brother in this house by bashing his head. Cain and Abel. Yeah, we just had Cain and Abel in this. And that's where things start to fast forward really fast and go through the entire Bible. We get the flood. We get the wars of the world. We get everything all the way up to Jesus' crucifixion. That's right. Jennifer Lawrence gets pregnant and gives birth to a baby. And basically this baby is crucified and eaten. Yeah, it's disturbing. It is extremely disturbing. But that's what happens. They are eating the bread and drinking the wine, the body and the blood of Jesus. And they all believe that they are perfectly good followers of the author. Awkward, weird approach to this, but that's what Aronofsky does. Ultimately, the movie ends with Jennifer Lawrence pretty much getting raped by the people. That is basically symbolism of how we in today's society rape the world. We take all the natural resources and don't really give anything back. And then in the end, the world is set afire and everything restarts. That's right. The end of the movie starts back to the beginning of the movie. It's no surprise that this movie is very cynical and sinister towards the Christian faith. Aronofsky is a known atheist and has taken liberties with other Christian films. That is not to bash his artistry, but it is to say that most Christians probably will find this movie blasphemous and unsettling. I personally thought it was a well-crafted movie that honestly can get people talking about the Christian faith. Now, the ratings for this film, they are very mixed. I'm saying critics are giving this a 68 on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience, they're giving it a 43. Now, personally, I think this is because critics caught on to some of the allegories. Audiences didn't. To give you a few that didn't, we're going to be looking at some of the reviews from IMDb. Jim O'Malley said, "It's a comedy of horror. I certainly tried to cling on to something, but I couldn't. The truth is, I could care less about the mother because I didn't believe her plight." Really, Jim? Next, we're going to look at Aleated. He or she also posted on IMDb with this quote: "The film was supposed to be applauded for being written in 6 days, but in actuality, it's so bad, you know it was written in 6 days." Ouch. All right. I mean, kind of impressive it was written in 6 days. Also, I feel like that's partially a hint as to what this movie is about, because he rested on the 7th day. Now let's get into some of the good reviews. For these, we're going to be looking at Rotten Tomatoes, where they have more actual authentic critics giving comments about these films. And these critics are giving it 8s and 9s. Yeah. So let's take a look. Matthew from the San Diego Reader said, "If you are going to shake your fist at the heavens, you may as well do it with some style." And Matthew, I say you're right. Aronofsky obviously is shaking his fist at the heavens. And it is apparent in this movie. Nice review. Now, Peter Travers of Rolling Stone says, "Aronofsky's visionary biblical allegories always seem on the verge of exploding. Lawrence Bardem, Oscar caliber Pfeiffer are all on fire. Love it or loathe it, this film is an artist's cry from his own corrupt heart. You won't know what will hit you." And that is also true. Now, obviously, if you're watching this review, you've seen it, or you don't care about spoilers, so you're probably not going to be hit as hard, because I've already covered these spoilerific insights. So my final thoughts are this. Personally, I think this movie was marketed wrong. This movie was marketed as a horror movie, and that is not what this is. It's a horrifying movie, but it is not a horror movie. This movie gets into the nitty-gritty and dark aspect of the Bible. And that's what's horrifying about it. But it is not the classic horror film that everyone was hoping for. You know, we can see that in the reviews. We can see that in the audience to critic reviews. You know, if you look at it, audiences went in expecting a horror movie and they left feeling cheated. Critics went into this movie knowing what to expect for the most part, and they got what they asked for. They may have not liked where it went. They may have not liked how it was portrayed, but they knew what they were getting. So you really have to know where this movie is going to fully appreciate it. Personally, I think this movie takes a big hit because of the marketing. If you can't market your movie to get the mass audience, then maybe it's not a movie worth committing to. This movie, unfortunately, gets a 6.5 out of 10. I know it's a harsh score for basically the way I talked about this movie and talked it up, but because it was marketed wrong, it gets a lower score. It's a definite must-see. I definitely think everyone should see it, but be ready for some unsettling images. If you can't stomach some of the things, then you probably shouldn't see it. The average moviegoer may felt overspent because it's not exactly what you would expect from a horror movie. So let's talk about what's going to happen next week on the channel. Next week, we're going to be talking about Matthew Vaughn's The Kingsman: The Golden Circle. That's right, the sequel to Matthew Vaughn's original work, Kingsman: Secret Service. I loved the first Kingsman. It was great. Samuel L. Jackson, Colin Firth, incredible cast. But this one has just as big as a cast. We have Taron Egerton again. He was great in Kingsman. We also have Colin Firth coming back. How? We'll have to wait and see. But it's going to have Channing Tatum, Julianne Moore, Halle Berry. I mean, the list goes on. Well, that's all the time we have on this week's The Weekly Wrap. I want to thank you for liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, check out this circular icon here. And if you want more videos from Hometown Studios, you can check out these videos here.